hear the voices singing. Speed your journey, boys, boys, Bach. One nation, singing with one voice. A song of hope, a song of courage, a victory song that floats through the valleys like a red mist, rolls over the mountaintops like crimson thunder. A red storm is coming to the gates of Qatar. It crackles with the spirit of 58 and Jimmy Murphy's boys. It turns the pages of the history books and finds Rob's page, waiting, still to be written. What would you write in there, boys? Dare you write your names on that page? We haven't waited 64 years and come halfway around the world to be troubled by a neighbour from back home. When the English come knocking on our door, let's give them some sugar, boys! Let's give them some Welsh sugar! They've always said we're too small, we're too slow, we're too weak, too full of fear. But Amar o Hyd, you sons of speed, as they fall around us, we are still here! To the world!
Look at him. He runs like a Welshman. Doesn't he? Doesn't he run like a Welshman?
Yo, hey, how's it going, guys? Am I on mute yet? No, I should be, because I really need to cough. Sorry, I'm asthmatic. Best way to start a show is with an inhaler. Always. Oh shit, I'm not doing those nerd rumors any good, am I? Here we go. It was a good start with it. I do love that intro, but what I wanted to do is I've actually got a couple more planned. I've also got some songs and some things that I've got in there, changing how it works and that. And I'm kind of getting in touch with when I was doing like my radio presenting days and stuff like that, because like my whole intro was like an amalgamation and a mashup of like other stuff. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So, hi, how are you doing? How is everyone? I had a whole stream plan. It's such an intricate, really well thought out, really decent, flushed out idea. I had it all written down. Stayed up all night writing it. I promise I did. And then it just sort of deleted itself. I'm not even joking. We are one missing again. I don't know where he is, but I'll tell you what. While I'm here talking to you, should we try and call him? Should we try that? Let's see if we can give him a call. Oh, we're ringing. Give me a second. Let's see if we can find him. Well, I tried a couple of times. Unfortunately, he is supposed to be here, and to be honest with you, I did want him here. And we do have somebody else that is likely to come up later on. I've got really, really cool plans to have I think it's a really fascinating chat about what's happening, not just in Southampton, but also what's happening in like the far rights. You know, how we can apply what's happening here to the broader pattern of the far right. And there's a sort of structure within that sort of far right sphere that we know at the moment, that starts all the way from the top and bleeds all the way into the bottom. It's a tier system, but it's also circular. It feeds into itself. I've actually went quite in depth with this, and I had like one of those moments where you like have an idea before you go to bed, and then I just spent all night working on it and stuff. You do have a face for radio. Thank you, Rob. Mwah, I love you too. I really appreciate it. How are you doing, dude? I hope you're good. The homework ate his dogs. That is likely to have happened. He has a lot of homework, and it can get quite in depth. It's got a lot of teeth to his homework. So we've got an A up. Hey, how you doing, Jimothy? Jimothy's in here. Shabba. Let's have a look at points. It's going to be a hard one because at the moment all I've got is the ones from today. But so technically, oi, we've got a whole different point set up now at the moment, haven't we? This is, look at this now. We've got Michael in first, Gillian's always there, to be fair. Gillian in second, and Specs has got his third place. So, if you don't mind, we've got 10 points to give to Michael. We've got 5 points to give to Gillian, and we've got 10 to give to Specs. They're going to go on the Discord. And for those of you that actually did comment before the other stream was due to go out, and then it got changed last minute, I can't see those comments, so they don't exist. Sorry. Oi, Welsh comrades. How are you doing, Katie? Everyone should go and subscribe to Katie. Let me just spend a minute saying hello to the chat before I get everything up, because it is a really big, really in-depth story that kind of it goes to a sort of center point, which is the Henry Novak killing and the police, their role within that killing, and how they mishandled it and everything else. It's a really big sort of story. But in order to understand, because I titled this stream "How to Profit from Murder," the Southampton Riot review. In order to understand truly how to profit from this murder, how to do all of that stuff that they are doing. And by the way, I don't condone this. I just mean that this is a pattern that I'm seeing certain far-right grifters doing. Certainly the people that you've seen on the thumbnail, the AYs, the Lawrence Foxes, the Tommy Robinsons, they're all cashing in on this death. And in order for you to understand how it is exactly that they were doing it, I think it's important to understand where everybody sits, understand the structure of the far right, where everybody sits, the sort of cyclical circle that feeds itself, how that connects with, like documents like the stochastic auditing thing, all of that stuff. It is all interconnected. And I think I spent last night trying to draw some dots together. I think I've studied the auditors and stuff enough to be able to say with some confidence where they rest within the sort of tier system, within the hierarchy or cycle of the far right, however you want to phrase it. But first, because I spent all night doing that, I haven't even had a look at what the headlines are. So let's have a look at some news headlines. Let's do it together. What is in the news today? I'm going straight to Google because, of course, that's where everyone gets their news from. That's what we do these days. Right, bear with me. We are going to go into headline rundown. Boom. So, in the headlines today are, let's have a gander. News Google share. Hey, look at this. Who are the far-right agitators at the Henry Novak protest in Southampton? We will be taking a look at this, but we will go back to it a little bit later. It is dominating the news cycle, isn't it, at the moment? So Starmer accuses Musk of trying to whip up division over the Henry Novak murder. Oh, God. Israel and Lebanon agree to implement a ceasefire. Israel and Lebanon have agreed to implement a US-brokered ceasefire as Washington seeks to stop fighting between the Iran-backed militant groups, I'm assuming that says. But I don't subscribe to Financial Times, so we're going to go over to BBC and have a look at this one instead. Man shot with a crossbow on university campus. Holy shit. A 21-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a member of the staff at a university in Surrey was shot with a crossbow. Fuck. I'm not saying that they should be illegal. I don't understand the legality of them. I'm just saying I don't understand how crossbows are legal. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Yeah, you could just have them. That's fine. Everything else is banned. Okay. But I guess for hunting or something, I don't know. But yeah, they do seem to pop up a lot in British news, don't they? Man shot with a crossbow on the university campus. So what's this about then? So Surrey police said officers were called to report a man in his 50s being shot with a weapon at Manor Park Student Village, Guildford. I'm sorry, but it just sounds so medieval. In the student village of Guildford, a man was shot with a crossbow around 10 a.m. on Thursday. Oh, wow. So a former student at the university is being arrested and is in custody. So is the 50-year-old, is the victim, does he work there or something? So the University of Surrey said a member of its campus safety team What's the... Okay, I'm going to have to Google what a campus safety team is. Is that like the security team? Is he shot like a security guard? So, campus safety team in the UK is a university's employed department responsible for security, physical safety, and their security. They're there for the staff, the students, the visitors, and on the university grounds. So he shot the security. That's what that means. So he's seriously injured as well. Fucking hell. So police said the victim was taken to hospital and that a significant emergency services presence remained at the scene. What's this? What does that mean? Super. What does CHSUPT stand for? Like chair superintendent? Like, what does that mean? Anyone in the chat? I have no idea what that is, but I have no idea what that even means. But that dude, John Groenen, said the suspect was detained at the scene shortly after the incident. The investigation is now underway to establish the circumstances for the assault. So that's what we know so far, isn't it, really? I'm just reading on working closely with our investigation process. So it is in the investigation process, and a member of the security team at the university, a 50-year-old man, was shot by a 21-year-old. And he was trying to kill him. Clearly, I say clearly. He's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. I can't imagine how that was an accident. No one takes crossbows to school today, to the university. That's pretty fucking wild. So that's in the headlines there. Knife attacker jailed for life for Saudi student's murder. Oh God, we're full of like murder and death today in the news, isn't it? So a cocaine-fueled knife attacker has been jailed for life for the murder of a Saudi student. So Mohammed, who was 20, was learning English at a foreign language school in Cambridge, was slashed in the neck while he was with friends outside student accommodation in Mill Park near the city's train station on August the 21st, 2025. Chaz Corrington, 22, of Holbrook Road in Cambridge, was jailed for life with a minimum of 22 years on Thursday. Oh, God. And there he is. There's the victim. So, what was the motivation here? What was the... Did he know him? What? Prosecutor Nicholas Hearn told Corrigan's trial that fellow student Mr. Al-Ghazim, Abdullah bin Sauli, heard the defendant say something to Mr. Al-Ghazim, but he could not hear what was being said and could not hear whether Mr. Al-Ghazim had said anything in reply. He said that they walked away from the group towards the train station. Mr. Hearn said that as the defendant walked away, Mr. bin Suli heard Mr. Azam say something to the defendant, but could only make out one word, centre. So it's turned in a, what did you say? What did you say? So it's over nothing. It was a miscommunication, a misunderstanding, a pretty much a what are you looking at type situation. What did you say? And this was in a very angry and aggressive way. Fuck me, that's a tale as old as time, isn't it? Oh my God, 20 years old. How old was this one? Chaz Corrigan, 22 and 20 years old. My God. So was he carrying a knife or did he go back for it? The defendant so he said that Mr. Mansuli saw the defendant punch Mr. Al-Ghazam on the left side of the neck and saw the defendant was holding a large knife in his right hand. So was he just carrying that with him? Oh my God, what a waste of just two lives like that for no reason. What did you say? What did you say? What did you say? And then, wow. Oh my God. The headlines aren't looking great, are they? Oh, you never guess who's calling me. Right. Bear with me. Do we answer? Of course we answer. 1 second. You never guess who that was. Or maybe you will. Well, we got, is it Hope Not Hate calling? Am I late for work? No, they phone me because they're late for work. Remember, I own Hope Not Hate. That was the rumor that I, with my 800 followers, we run Hope Not Hate. Apparently, hello, Crowd Crag. How you doing? Let me just jump in the chat there. Lee Anderson, he cold calls loads of people these days just for company, but he won't answer the calls of a certain Crusher. No, wait, Crusher Hogan. God, is that it? Is that his name? Andrew Luke. Is that his name? Crusher Hogan. Hey, look at that. You can turn your camera off if you want, Dad. There's no pressure or anything. I know you've got your phone, haven't you? So it's going to be hard to place it in that. Your PC's not playing up. So if you want, what might be easier is if you turn your camera off, plonk your phone down.
Do. Yeah, go on.
I'll turn my volume down. You're nice and loud. How are you doing?
I'm all right, lad. I'm just going to take this out of the case and that. You carry on. Ignore me for a minute.
All right, and I will do. So, yeah, it was, in fact, the Queen of Sheba. You're absolutely right. But no, it's funny that you mention Lee Anderson cold calling people because he won't answer the calls of Crusher Hogan, who has challenged him at this point. He took his top off. He had it written on his body in Sharpie. It was brilliant. Screen Cleaner is amazing. By the way, Andy, while you're here, save me having to root for it. Can you drop a link to Screen Cleaner so people know what I'm talking about? But Lee Anderson won't accept his calls and he won't take his very legitimate, decent offer of settling their differences with a wrestling match, a legal, decent sporting competition, like men, like, you know what I mean? Crusher Hogan. He wrestled a 14-year-old Peter Parker, but Lee's afraid. What the fuck's going on there? Lee Anderson, you need to man up. Well, what are you wearing, Dad?
Is it the right way round?
It is, yeah. It is for me. I don't know about for the chat.
It's a thing I bought through the Daily Mail for that guy that used to do the Daily Mail. Daily Mail. Who buys this shit? Yeah.
I fucking love it. How are you, Dad? How have you been? Thanks for joining us. Finally,
I'm all right. I'm okay. I've been looking. I didn't want to miss this one. My computer's popped its freaking clogs again. Frank Computers died again. So that's the end of that. But we're here. Onto phone. You're tiny. You are tiny. Otherwise, it's fine. As long as I don't...
Luckily, you don't need to click anything, and I'll bring up comments and stuff, and it's going to be quite an interactive one this time. Okay. I'll tell you what, Dad. I spent all of last night trying to develop like a sort. Let me take this story off here. We were just doing about a stabbing, and it was pretty horrible. Let me go back to the headlines there. Yeah, so I went down the rabbit hole last night, and I was trying to explain about the grifting that's gone alongside this latest riot in Southampton, and how it all plays in together, how one creates the other, and how it's about financial gain, and whether it's orders or whoever, obviously far right vloggers is who I mean by orders. It's a spectrum. There are decent orders, but far right vloggers and things, how they convert all of this into cash. They don't really care about the I'm so sorry. Someone's knocking on my door. Can you give me just 1 second? I'm so very, very sorry. 1 sec.
So hi guys in the chat, you Chatteroony. Sorry I was late. Doing myself a smack salad there. Is he in? Yeah, smack. Anyway, yeah. So my computer's died, guys. That's not happy, is it? It's not good. It's just died. With the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I don't know how many of you are into computers, but it won't recognize my keyboard. Not only that, it won't light my keyboard up. But it won't light my keyboard up in whatever USB thing I put it in. Whatever slot I put it in, the keyboard won't light up. And it says it's missing it. Blah blah. So if someone would like to fix that for me, please, that'd be lovely. Oops. And I've dropped things and stuff. So yeah, the goings on. Oh, you're back here.
Yeah, Lee Anderson knocked on the door. Sorry. So your keyboard's dead, basically.
Uh-huh.
Come on, Milo, if you get. But yeah, and also I've had tech issues today as well. I spent all night writing this thing about this structure, like I was saying about, you know, in order to understand what's happening in the what you pressing there? What are you doing?
Oh, is that affecting you? I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll leave it alone. I was trying to make it big screen on here, but because I can hardly see. But never mind, I'll go by sound alone. Later on, I'll be doing it by touch. It's all good.
So, right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Right, we are so disjointed. We've got this, right? Also, your avatar is the same as mine, but I think I can change. No, I can't. I'll change mine, though, because I know you won't be able to do yours with your phone, or you'll struggle to do it at least. So
yeah, I'd struggle to do it.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a complete and utter fresh start.
Okay.
How are we all doing? Okay,
yes, how do all the other devices work on the ports? It's really weird. The mouse works, lights up and everything when I put it in the same ports, but no.
All right, and so we're going to completely drop all of the subjects we were talking about, and we're going to start again from fresh. Ready? Let's go. Hello, Dad. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, son. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Sorry, do you know what this stream has been littered with? I was a couple of minutes late getting to the stream. Also, I had loads of stuff written down for today. So I was flailing a little bit before because I had loads of stuff written down for the stream today, but unfortunately, loads of it got deleted. But I have managed to rescue it, like a bunch of stuff, and I've got, with the help of everybody in the with the help of everybody in the Discord, I managed to, to put together something really cool, and I had some really good resources and stuff. So now that we've done a restart in the stream,
I'll claim my points again.
Second, so we've got right now. I'm sorry, but Michael had the idea. I'm really sorry, Specs. You get to keep the points from the beginning of the start of the stream, but the new beginning goes to Church Bell, gets 10 points. Michael with the second comment, and MZ, who thought she was second, gets third. And Specs, I'm sorry, close but no cigar. So you've had a bunch of tech issues. I've had a bunch of tech issues, and to be honest with you, there's been one story though that we're, as much as we could do the headline rundown and everything else, there's only kind of one story that is dominating the news cycle really at the moment, and that is the murder of Henry Nowak and the riot that ensued.
Yeah, not even dare I say it. Not so much the murder, but the fucking response to it. These fucking animals. I am absolutely. I mean, Jesus, I knew they were bad, these guys, but fucking hell. I just. I mean, I don't know. I do know politics.
So,
and they're all. I heard plenty of things going on there that were absolutely fucking disgusting. Disgusting. A Liverpool big station, I heard people shouting
politics.
Chants of fucking.
Yeah.
Sorry. I heard people shouting chants of white men fight back and stuff like that. What the fuck? I mean, seriously, there's a lot of locking up needs to be done from what went on over the last couple of days, including some of the people we know as fucking auditors or activists or whatever, encouraging it and shit.
Bullshit. Made up.
Absolutely
bullshit.
Disgusting. In the view of this old man.
Could you hear that?
Some bullshit.
No.
Made up bullshit.
What'd she say?
Bunch of fascist slags.
Robbing.
We've got a soundboard, Dad. I thought you might like that.
Fucking ace. Can't wait. Unfortunately, I can't use
You
it
can't
from
access it right now
phone.
either. Oh, do you know what that is, Dad?
Some bullshit. Made up bullshit.
Oh, that's not
That's what
fair.
that is.
You have me at a disadvantage, sir.
Fuck's far right vlogging.
Right, sorry, before I get distracted now, you mentioned politics then, and the reason why that's relevant, I'm just trying to get this up now. Because when it comes to discussing the events that happen there, it's getting increasingly difficult to talk about just these isolated events, like talking about Henry Novak and how that was hijacked, talking about whether it's child sexual exploitation, whether it's immigration or anything like that. It's really difficult when it comes into the hands of the far right for us over here to talk about them as just these separate, individual incidents that aren't connected. And then what we usually do is we pick up on these things and we would try to break it down and put out the counter narrative. That's usually what this channel serves as, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought it would be better to look at the broader political spectrum. It's getting increasingly difficult to talk about these patterns without actually isolating the structure and everything else that goes along with it. So let me just upload it here because this was made today. We were in Discord and they've managed to help take an idea that I had and really bring it to life in lots of different ways. I've got this. There's a tier system that exists within the right. I think I've identified a structure within the far right and the position that the auditors play in that structure. And it's a tier system, but it's also a cycle that feeds into itself. Now, it's important to understand this structure, this tier system, and this circle, because in order to understand how the grift works and everything else, and to understand why this isn't just one isolated incident that's being hijacked, you know what I mean? It's multiple things. It's a pattern. It's part of this. It's part of a system. So this is the sort of radicalization propaganda feedback cycle that we were developing today. I tell you what, shout out to Specs Bean Farmer for this. He is absolutely amazing. So I've identified what I think is sort of 5 tiers. I know it's got 6 on there, but I would add the sort of 6 and the 5 together anyway. But I've identified what I believe to be sort of 5 tiers, not including the political donors. So this is the structure of the far right, and this is where the whole ecosystem fits in, how it operates, how it works together, how it's a cyclical circle that is self-propelling as well. It's a cyclical cycle.
You said a cyclical circle, didn't you?
I meant cycle. I meant damn it! I said cyclical circle. Damn it! That's we're gonna have to put that in our word wall that we've got in the Discord of all the people that say stupid words in the wordle thing. So. Tell me if this makes any sense to you, Dad, because obviously you're completely blind to any of this. I did this all throughout the night and then it got deleted. Then I had to redo it. And then I did it with the help of a bunch of really awesome people in the Discord to get it to where it is. And after we've gone through this, I think there's someone else that we're going to bring up on the stream to really help us break some stuff down. But let me know if this makes any sense. So at the very top of the tier 1, right, of the 5 tiers, you've got Nigel and Rupert, right? You've got your Farages. They're up there. I've also put their donors up there as well, but they're the representative figures. They're at the top of the list because of their proximity to fascism, plus also their role within our society itself. Like they're at the upper echelons of society, and their influence is significant. They set and push the ethno-cultural talking points that set the mainstream narrative. Now, I've called it the ethno-cultural talking points because Nigel Farage has and Rupert Lowe have a sort of together they have a blend of ethno talking points, ethno nationalist talking points, and cultural nationalist talking points. So we're going to put that together. And so tier 1 is the people who are at the very top that push the far right ethno cultural talking points, and then that helps tier 2, right? So tier 2 is your people like Tommy Robinson, people like Danny Tomo, people that mobilize people, Katie Hopkins, these influencers that this is also a grifting scale as well, but we'll come to that in a bit. But so tier 2 is operated by Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins, and those kind of people. They mobilize people in the activist space. They get people into the streets. They get the engagement and the support with the the shared viewpoints and everything else. They're the ones who are like the activists that get people angry, that get them out there to protest. Then there's tier 3, who are benefited directly by the increased mobilization, these people out on the streets. These are the people who are the sort of the UKIPs, the sort of fringe parties, the fringe sort of ethno bigoted parties that what the Homeland Party, stuff like that. They're not the full out and out neo-Nazi, even though they are there. They're just not saying the quiet part out loud. These are the fringe bigot groups, and they get to network there. They can recruit members. So if Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage said that we should respond with cold, pure rage, and to make it come back to the Henry Note thing, that was the tier 1 thing, right? And then at tier 2, you see Tommy Robinson out there mobilizing people. Then you also see people like Nick Tenconi in tier 3 capitalizing on that, networking, trying to recruit members, getting his face out there too. Those groups act as bridges, although they're not always hardline enough for some of the others, which takes us to tier 4, which are similar to tier 3, but these are the hardline, no shit, like Nazi and extremist. These are as it's written there, the clandestine extremist cells, right? So this is their membership small, and it grows small, but it does grow small from recruitment through tier 3 and everything else, because people will go there and think that they have the answer, but they're not quite hardline enough. And even though these people that think that are the smaller numbers, they directly feed into tier 4, right? And so that's how they grow. Now, tier 5, this is the auditors. This is the bottom of the run. Ignore the way it says tier 6 there, because the extremist content all feeds into each other there now. So auditors directly collaborate with tier 4 cells, which is how that beneficial system works there. People like Ryan Ferguson, the Aryan Front, who is directly linked with terrorist cells like what's his name, Jack Renshaw. We saw that they were just recently talking with each other on the phone in the high street while Operation Raise the Colours was commencing, and they were hanging flags. They're all in the sort of like the auditors. What they do is they develop the online content that generates the memberships that support both groups above them, and for Tommy Robinson and them. So if you're at the bottom of the tier, you help those above, and then this is why it's a tier system, but it's also cyclical. So what they do is they create content that pushes cultural ethno-nationalist talking points, which then ends up back at tier 1. Nigel and Rupert and people like that, they push no cultural talking points. And then, so does that make any sense, or am I just a crazy person rambling?
No, go on, carry on.
So far, I think that this is where we're placing at the very bottom of the run, the filthy little bottom feeders. That's the auditors, but they directly feed into the tier 1 stuff. I mean, we've seen auditors walking around with Rupert Lowe slogans, and it all directly ties in together. It's not just a group of they are loosely affiliated, but it is a network. There is a structure here. And I think it's important to understand this structure. And then if you look at it through the lens of grift, which is what we're going to do now, it gets a little different. But so far, does this tier system, does this structure make sense in the way that it is now? And this is obviously excluding the donors at every level as well, because they exist, and we will talk about them in a bit. But is it are you with me, Dad? Does it make sense? Is there anything?
Yeah, I'm with you so far, lad.
All right, and awesome. So now we're on to like the grifting side of things, and the grifting side of this tier structure. So the donors. So let me have a look again now. I had again, there was another really cool list that was developed before. At the top of this list is Christopher Harborn, who is the crypto aviation investor. He has donate, his like political donations to either Reform or Restore. I think it's Reform. Are to the tune of now £22 million. So this is where that's at tier 1. So tier 1 represents the higher donating sort of area where all of the real money is. This is the tens of millions of pounds, right? That's all floating around there. Some of that, because of that money, that kind of, and that the position that puts people like Nigel and Rupert in, that directly feeds right into tier 2. who now have these ethno-cultural nationalist talking points that have been legitimised in Parliament because they've been debated, and it shapes whether they do or don't change it. It directly shapes policy, for better or for worse. So them bringing it up legitimises that, which genuinely helps tier 2, right? So tier 2 then get to mobilize these people, which then help with their grift and their money. This is why they are the second level amongst there. These guys make the second most amount of money out of this area. They're relying directly on direct donations, memberships, because of course they've all got extremely large YouTube and social media presence. Those things pay as well, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's their social media companies like Urban Scoop and things like that for Tommy Robinson. I believe that's monetized. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long rabbit hole, this one, but there are even if he isn't personally monetized on some outlets, there are those that he is, like X and everything else, and so it generates a lot of money. Then that takes us down to the tier 3 people, right? So these are the ones who want to be establishment politics, and they're trying to do so via the tier 2 route, which is being an influential figure. So Nick Tenconi, he's trying to do his best. We heard from young Bob in the Hope Not Hate documents that were released, the voice recordings and such, that all he's doing is he's just finding the most outrageous, most controversial and divisive things that he can do in a public space that will generate views, which then go into generating memberships, which then go into generating money. And again, YouTube platforms, all these other various outlets, Talking Point is heavily involved in that. That's where those operate. Now, the more popular those are, the more popular and beneficial it is for the people in tier 4, because again, those groups tier 3 acts as a bridge. And it's sometimes people go to them and they're not hardline enough. So we have to go to the hardline extremists. People like Mark Collette, people like Ryan Ferguson, proper neo-Nazi cells, and I'm including the terrorist cells in there. People like Jack Renshaw, who is directly involved. I mean, we've seen phone calls on video. We've seen, I know it sounds like a weird oxymoron, bear with me. We've seen people making phone calls. We've heard it over the video that, Jack Renshaw was being updated by Ryan Ferguson, who is, a Varian Front and, a known neo-Nazi who exists within tier 4. He was on the phone updating him about what he was doing, operating alongside Operation Raise the Colours, which also operate in tier 4, right? And then we get to tier 5. This is the depending solely on social media. It's the lowest of the run. It makes the less money. But it reaches millions, and it reaches millions, which goes into feeding why the donors put the money in at the top with Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, again with the ethno-nationalist cultural talking points it puts in the public sphere and enables them to be able to talk about it into Parliament. And that's the grift cycle tier system. Does that make any sense, or am I just a mad person rambling again, Dan?
No, it makes perfect sense, especially with the names. We need names to places, don't we? Yeah, no, you're right. Although I'm struggling greatly with this phone to see what's going on here.
Okay, well, this one isn't going to be too much of a visual one. I think what we're going to do now as well is we're going to invite somebody up. If it's all right for them, my amazing, wonderful mystery guest. If you're here, I'll just send you a quick ping in case you're not listening. But yeah, I think that before we move on to Henry Nowick stuff, which is what I want to do now. Brilliant. Thanks. Fantastic. I think it's vitally important to understand this system, this cycle. And I genuinely hope that it's coming across well, because I spent a long time, not a lot of sleep going down this thing. But it's one. But and to be honest as well, I also want to go through it a little bit just to make sure that it's understood. Put some names to the tiers and stuff so that we can understand it, and also the chat as well. If you guys can give me any feedback or try and pick it apart, play devil's advocate, just see where this goes, because I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I've just, I've created this structure, based on the work of other people, and it doesn't make sense. So,
cool.
Put that to one side. Welcome aboard, mystery guest. How are you?
White guys.
Hello. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you too.
Yeah.
Oh, can you just hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect. That's absolutely.
I wasn't going to say anything then. Yeah.
I thought about that too. We're so mean. We're like, for a second, I was like, just don't say anything. No, don't do that. That's the naughty. That's the devil on my shoulder. But hi, MZ is the angel on my shoulder, as always.
Wow.
How are you
Devil
doing? How's
on
your day been?
I'm all right. I've been chilling today. Not long since got out of the bath. So, woohoo.
Nice and relaxed, all funky fresh. Good.
Well, this is all a bit interesting, isn't it? And it ties back into a lot of the themes that you've already covered, because as you're explaining this, I'm sort of thinking about that pyramid of hate and how that's kind of a cyclical system as well, because you're, I can't remember the tiers, but it was like biased attitudes were at the bottom, weren't it? And then you move up into acts of violence and oh gosh, what tiers? Let me see if I can pull up a visual.
I'm just doing it right now. I'm going to grab a visual for us. It would help if I put of hate on there, because I just typed in pyramid and that's silly. I've just got to save this as, or better yet, I'll just click on the thing. So this is from the Holocaust Center one. This is the one that I've looked at a few different times. This is here now. Share screen, Holocaust there, and then I need to take this visual down as well. Sorry, we don't yet have a producer. I'm thinking about training Dad. So this is the pyramid of hate, and I could probably find a better, more clearer picture of it. But as you were saying, at the bottom of it, the start of it, the first run is the biased attitudes. That says stereotyping, insensitive remarks, fear of differences, non-inclusive language, microaggressions, justifying biases, and seeking out like-minded people, accepting negative or misinformations / screening out positive information.
We'll find it. We'll find you too, Bob.
So yeah,
sorry.
My point was, as you go through each of them steps, working your way up to the top of that pyramid, eventually you hit a point where it's just too repulsive. The content that you're engaging with is too repulsive, and you step away from it for a while. But then when you return to it and you go through those steps of programming again, and you get up to a more aggressive step, what previously repulsed you, it's now more acceptable because you've repeated that cycle. That's how these radicalization pipelines work. They desensitize you to ideas through repetition. So yeah. Wow.
Where's he gone?
I killed the stream. Unbelievable.
Oh, God damn it. I was talking on mute. God damn it. So I was just trying to, long story short, because I was talking for a second then. Basically, this is the troubling pipeline that they go through. They escalate through these, because it's an escalation ladder, this pyramid of hate, isn't it? And they escalate through these steps, through the biased attitudes, into the acts of bias, and it's the discrimination and the bias motivated violence, and then the genocide. And you can apply this not just directly to the Holocaust and for genocide and things like that, but you can apply this escalation ladder to a variety of things, which is kind of what we did with the tier system. Then it's kind of like that sort of it demonstrates that how it creates this was highlighted by the concern netizen article. I was reading that again today because I just found it connected and tied in so well with what I was saying, the idea that I was trying to do. And it puts out this idea of like these cyclical cycles that happen. And with it being a cyclical cycle, it can like branch off into another cycle. It's almost like a cyclical spiral, I would say. And we end up where we end up, and we end up to the point now where when you take a step back and you look at the current makeup of the far right and the structure that exists between them, it's undeniable. And the position that auditors play in there, and how they their content obviously runs up through the helps society run through these escalation ladders. It also desensitizes, and the content gets more and more extreme, and then violence is inevitable. Like the whole stochastic auditing document theory really covered that in depth. And I think now what I'm hoping to do is we could probably, I want to look at how we can apply this to the Henry Nowak situation, because it's my understanding that when the far right jump on certain issues, whether it's issues of sexual assault, whether it's child exploitation, whether it's like right now with the murder of Henry Nowak, these far right vloggers, these YouTubers, these people who are helping to shape perception right now, they don't actually really care about any of those things, and that the common thread between all of them are it's the profile of the offender, and that they're making money. So the more extreme something is, like we saw with not yesterday, night before, the riot that happened in Southampton, it's got nothing to do with the murder of Henry Nowak, and it's got everything to do with getting clicks, views, kicking off whatever position you exist within the. Let me just bring it up again. Wherever you exist within this tier system, whether you're tier 1, Nigel, or Rupert, tier 2, you're Katie Hopkins, or like someone like Lawrence Fox, or perhaps like Tommy Robinson, who's probably the chief in that tier, whether it's tier 3, all of these tiers as we move down all the way to auditors, they were all there to grift. They were there to make money. We saw AY Audits on a stream with one phone recording another phone that was showing his count of subscribers as the riot was going on. And remember, this was supposed to be about the murder of an 18-year-old kid.
Well, the interesting thing, you touched upon it at the beginning of your stream in that other news article about that other young student, the 20-year-old that got stabbed in the neck. It's all about the perpetrator or the victim's skin colour, isn't it? It's not actually about what happened. That murder that you were talking about at the beginning of your stream is very comparable to the Henry Nowak situation, in that they were both students, in that they were both stabbed.
And the senseless nature of it all.
And the senseless nature of it all, the time. I think Henry Nowak was murdered at the beginning of December. I think that murder that you were just talking about at the beginning of your stream was,
I want to say,
did you say August or October?
Yeah, that's the month I had in my head, August 2025, yeah.
Yeah, so they're in a similar type of time frame, but you won't hear them mention that second case because the victim doesn't fit their narrative of who a victim is and who a perpetrator is.
Oh wow, that is such a good take, because what we've done is there with because at the beginning of the stream we led with the headlines. We talked about how let me remove this as well. Sorry, we talked about how that stabbing and that incident, and we talk about this one now. And look at the difference in how we're having to talk about it because of the reactions. One led to a riot, and the other one didn't. And when we look at the people that go there, that cause, in my opinion, that are drivers behind these events, people like the auditors that exist in tier 5, but also the entire tier system, they were all there either in statement, like Nigel Farage with his pure cold rage, or in person, like Tommy and everybody else in that tier system down to the auditors. They are one of the biggest drivers of the reason why it turns into riots, and also why there is no protest about the murder that we talked about at the beginning. There's no news about that. There's no riots about that. There's no kicking off about that. And it's because of the offender, of the profiles and the victim. Like it's all about the profile. It's about ethnicity. And they'll tell you that it's not about that. And they may believe that too. They may believe that their natural enemy, when it comes to covering subjects like sexual assault or this murder or any of these subjects that they purport to be defenders, of the victims of, when it comes to any of that, their coverage of it is clearly loaded and aimed at one people. They might say that, we just don't like illegal immigrants or whatever, but this is something their coverage and everything else disproportionately affects those of a certain ethnicity. It is about skin color. When you look at the groups that they target and they attack, it is about that. It's all about the offender and their profile in relation to the victim and their profile, not about the crime, not about anything like that. And the money that can be made from this is unreal.
Yeah, it's insane.
So, I mean, okay, so I watched a little bit of a thing this morning before my computer blew up. somebody was at a police station in Liverpool yesterday, and then people turned up, a few people turned up, a few people turned off, and it started getting a little bit gnarly, not too bad. And then the protesters are demanding that the police kneel down, take the knee, which is an Americanism thing, and the whole thing's from America, isn't it? It's a lot of nonsense. So they're insisting the police take the knee and stuff, and then obviously they didn't. A policeman walks back inside, and then a bunch of young kids followed him in the station. And I didn't see somebody else slip in, but I heard this shout went up from these people, this group inside the police station. White man, fight back. Repeated lots of times. White man, fight back. And the camera went close to the door, and guess whose head popped up inside the police station there leading the chanting? DP's mate, little Ryan. Little Ryan the Nazi, leading chants of white man, fight back in the police station. Leading kids on to chant that shit. This is what, I mean, tell me what that's got to do with that fucking murder.
Well, this is the thing. So this is where we're tying now. So when it comes directly, specifically to the murder, let's have a look at it. So I will bring up I'll bring up an article about it now, just so anything that I do say isn't, because you've got to be careful about this stuff. And people, a kid, I don't want to say child. Obviously, he was 18. I don't want to infantilize him, but it's just so scary, and how everything else is spinning out of control. So I was going to bring up an article, but honestly, it's a bit difficult to pick which one. It's just all over the news and in so many different angles. I'll show you what I mean now. So Henry Novak. Oh God. So family are calling for a return to common sense, equality, whatever that is. Students react to scary disorder at Henry Novak protests. Let's just talk about what we know about the event. So let's come to BBC here. So what we know about what's unfolded so far. This is a BBC article. Henry Novak repeatedly told officers he had been stabbed, but he was handcuffed by police, and his killer, Vikram Digwa, falsely claimed that he had been racially abused. The 18-year-old was just a few months into his first year at university when the killer was on his way home to his accommodation in Southampton on the 3rd of December. Digwa has been jailed for life with a minimum of 21 years for the murder. So we know that Digwa stabbed Novak, and when the police were called, there was lots of attempts by the family and everything else of Digwa to make some interference here. There was huge delays in ambulance because the severity of it. The ambulance took 7 minutes, I believe, but the severity of it, unfortunately, it wasn't noted to the ambulance crew. No one mentioned weapons, no one mentioned knives and things like that. And so there's a lot of really big issues here. So on the one hand, I do feel for police, but the next thing that I want to mention is, oh my God, how fucking bad are the police?
Yeah, it was. If you, as a rational person approaching that scene, I've watched the video now. As a rational person approaching that scene, you're approaching some kind of dispute where there's been some kind of physical violence. So you've got a person on the ground, and you've got a lot of other people milling about. The first thing you want to do is kind of make sure that the person on the ground is okay. Now, playing devil's advocate, the police do deal with, especially at that time of night, a lot of young people who have had a lot to drink, who might be rolling around on the floor and feigning injury to try and get away with some misdeed that they've done. So, but that's only devil's advocate. What you're still dealing with is a person that's rolling around on the floor, and I feel like it's a very difficult one. But as for what Vikram said, a lot of people are putting like a racially motivated spin on it. What we have to remember is he was just a criminal doing what a criminal does and trying to evade detection. He was hoping likely that he could spin enough of a story that he could get away from scene and then make more of a plan at a later stage.
He was trying to avoid exactly what he got, 21 years in prison. And that, like you say, that line that you said there, I think is one that should echo a lot more. He was doing what a criminal does.
Yeah. I did have another point as well that I wanted to make. No, it's all right. I distracted myself actually because I felt like that was a important distinction to make. It was about some other people on scene, but I can't quite remember now.
Well, hopefully we could trigger it again then as we're moving through it. So, the killer, he was obviously a criminal, wasn't treated like a criminal because they made efforts to manipulate and to try to thwart the police's efforts. It has to be said, though, I think that this should be a conversation about how police deal with things. Like, I really it should be about police reform. And I do understand that, the police were in a difficult situation. And a lot of people are acting as though it was the police themselves that committed this act. And it wasn't. They did check for wounds. They couldn't find it. I think that there should be that on that front, there needs to be a lot of changes there. I think that the police should learn how to be able to check for wounds properly. They need to be able to, if somebody says they've been stabbed, there needs to be an ambulance. Right now, this person has been stabbed, whether they are or not. I mean, even if you're wasting time, I guess, at that point, if someone says they've been stabbed, you can't gamble with somebody's life and take that risk. Things were delayed because of the police and the fact that they operated a little bit slower and they didn't check efficiently enough. Obviously, they couldn't have because he had been stabbed. But I understand the difficult position they were in, being manipulated by a criminal.
So there is actually an interesting case. It's out of America that has a very similar. It's a very similar situation. So the police were called to do a welfare check on a couple. When they arrived, they found a disorientated young male in his early 20s, and they found a dead female on the couch. The male seemed to keep saying that she was asleep, but she was clearly deceased. And the male had a head injury, and they arrested him. They took him to the police station. They were interviewing him. He kept saying he'd been shot in the face, and they couldn't believe that he'd been shot in the face. So they carried on going through their processes on kind of an automatic pilot type thing. Even though this young man had 3 headshot wounds, one in his nose and 2 inside of his head. I believe one of the wounds was actually an exit wound. 2 of them were entries. One of them was an exit wound. So there is actually similar cases out there that you can draw on, and one of the problems seems to be that the police training sends police into this automatic pilot mode, where sometimes situations can seem so unusual that they don't recognise the actual significance and seriousness of a situation. And there is a problem with believing the first person that gets to them.
I've seen that with my own eyes. Yeah, 100%. The person that makes the call, that gets to speak to the police first on the scene as well. You know what I mean? When the police arrive, they often get to set the sort of what is then the primary narrative, and then everything else can be a secondary narrative, and then everything then is a challenge against that one narrative. So whoever gets to the scene first spins their version of events to the police. The police then use that as like a basis then, so everything's in reference to that. So if you're giving in your statement, they'll be like, well, this person said that. And so it's a big problem. That is a real big problem, and it shouldn't happen. There should always be like multiple accounts being taken by different. We need more police. This, it goes back to funding and everything else. There's so many issues that need addressing here, but fundamentally, I do think that there was things that could have been done differently. Absolutely, and the police should be held accountable for this. I agree with that, and I think that there's someone in the chat there that was making comments then about like the police and the family, the family were lied to. Sorry, the family were lying to the police and everything else. There was also comments of like racial slurs on him. I don't know if that was the case, if there was racial slurs and things, but without making it that, there is actually common ground for people like us, people that are are on different sides of the aisle. Like the people that made that comment and myself and everyone else, and that we can all agree that the police could be doing a better job. The way that they approach this is entirely wrong, and what we saw from from Digwa was just was a criminal being a criminal. They were breaking the law. They were trying to manipulate police to scapegoat, the victim. They did a Darvo. You know what I mean? They literally pulled a Darvo, and they were manipulating their way out of that. Which is why we have to be aware of these tactics and why we have to be aware of everything that's going on. And the police should be too. And this should be police reform. This should be, how do we deal with situations like this? Well, the way we're dealing with it right now is not working on an expectation.
So I think I could be wrong, but I would just like to address it. So where someone's suggesting that there was racial slurs, and I did look into this a little bit myself, not too deeply, I'm going to admit, and I have watched the video. And I don't remember hearing any racial slurs, but what I do remember hearing is that he said that Henry had made racial slurs towards him, and that he'd been attacked, and that Henry had been the attacker, and that he had Vikram had implied that it was a racially motivated attack. But yeah, I don't remember any slurs, hearing any slurs, but I could be wrong on that. I definitely could be wrong on that. I find
I don't
Can I just interrupt for a sec? Yeah, Jo, can I ask you just to kick me off? I just can't do it, mate. I can only hear about every third or fourth word.
And that's okay. Don't worry about it. And we will. This is a subject that's going on in the news, so we will cover it later on. You probably can't hear me much though, so I will kick you now. I love you loads, Dad.
A bloody shame. I really wanted to do this, but I'll catch you later. Take care.
Catch you later, Dad.
Toodles, Argel.
This is it's this story. It covers so much as well, and then. The actual actions of the police, I mean, it's difficult. It's, the way that the system is set up, the way that they deal with people, how the first person always gets to do that, the manipulation tactics and everything else that were employed by a criminal who, surprise, surprise, is trying his best not to be arrested, obviously, because that's what criminals do. And I'm glad he's in jail, and I'm glad he's being sentenced. I don't think that 21 years is long enough, in my opinion. I think we need to look at guidelines and things because, I mean, Henry was 18. And this guy's just
he showed extreme callous indifference, didn't he? I mean, he tried to subvert the police. He tried to get out. He showed fake injuries on his face, and like that level of callous indifference to deny the fact that somebody that is stabbed in front of you, to deny that is. That has to be a serious aggravating factor, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it is a very nuanced. It's a very nuanced issue, this as well, isn't it? Because I think that obviously, maybe guidelines are because it is an aggravated factor, and this chap was so young that he stabbed, but they're both young as well, and they've ruined multiple lives and families destroyed. But investigations need to happen, and I think what should happen is police should be taking more accountability about their actions that day and their involvement in that death, that murder, and it's so tragic and it's disgusting. But sort of moving on to the next kind of subject of this, which ties back into everything, which is the coverage and specifically like the far right vloggers and things that we've seen, and how that's been. They don't care about the nuances of this case. They just see that the offender fits a certain racial profile and the victim fits a certain racial profile, and because of the manipulations of the criminal in this case, by trying to insinuate that he was the original victim, and he went straight to racism. Because of that, it's now I've heard that the left are responsible, all this, that, and it's become a political football. It's become yet another tragedy that the far right and the vloggers and things are using to grift upon and make more money out of. I can't believe that we've ended up here. I think we're heading towards the summer of riots. If these guys keep going, they are a driving force behind it, and their framing of it and everything else. Just not only does it demonstrate how bigoted they are, and but it also demonstrates that they don't actually care about any of these core issues that they're using as a basis to launch attacks on certain types of people who fit certain profiles.
Well, Henry's family literally asked for people to stay calm, didn't they? They literally asked for that, and the auditors were out there, and different people were doing videos saying, "Oh, we feel sorry for family, this, that." Well, what you doing out causing a riot in the street if you sympathise with the family, you know?
I heard a comment that was said in a chat I had a little just a couple of days ago when it was all kicking off when we were watching it, and it's essentially like, I get the family's wishes, but I speak for all white people. That seems to be the attitude that I'm seeing from a lot of these writers and stuff. And I wonder, after last time you were on panel, we had a conversation about the rates of domestic abuse, and I can't wait to see what the rates of domestic abuse are from the arrests of this. And believe me, there's going to be lots of arrests. I think, how many officers were injured?
Was it 11 officers injured?
I think so. That was the number I had in my head.
One of them took a rocked a big brick, a big lump of stone to the face when they targeted them, on that little street first, those like group of coppers that had got like kind of separated from the rest. I don't understand how it happened, but they got kind of separated.
Yeah.
And they were throwing bins at them. They were hitting residents' cars and going in the gardens and all sorts. And then this big old fucking brick just hit this copper in the face. Shocking.
It's bad, isn't it? It's so bad. I saw it. Yeah, I saw that. I saw. I've got lots of resources and things in the Discord, which I will have a look at in just a bit. Some lots of footage, lots of things, bins being set on fire. Guys with like wheelie bins like overhead, throwing them at police and stuff. So there's a. I think this might be an interesting read here, and it might be relevant to the whole how to profit from a murder title. So this comes courtesy of Hope Not Hate, and it starts like it's titled "A Tragedy Exploited: Violence in Southampton After the Killing of Henry Novak." Last night, a violent protest erupted in Southampton following the release of new footage of horrifying murder of Henry Novak. Far-right actors, including Stephen Lennon, Nick Tenconi, Paul Golding, this is your tier 2 people, flocked to the event, which culminated in violent unrest and police pelted with bins, plant pots, bricks, and other projectiles. I saw beer bottles. 11 police officers, we were right, and a police dog were injured. Like, I get it, police dogs are scary, but I still think it takes a special kind of scumbag to hurt a police animal, like horses or dogs. Like, I get it, like, they're part of the police, and if they're your enemy, I understand that to a degree, but you can't extend that to the animals, surely.
I feel like that must have been from like an accidental projectile or something like that. I feel like even the far right are not that cruel to deliberately target a police dog. I feel like they were trying to hurt the police, so I don't know how they could have been doing what they were doing and not trying to hurt the police.
No, absolutely. Let me just close that. I do really. They were taking it out, police. Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is I heard someone whittering on the other day about how the only reason it went to violence is because the police switched into riot gear. Like, no, it was getting late in the day, and if even the peaceful protests, if they go on towards the end of the day, the police will automatically put riot gear on, because if it starts getting dark, there's a flashpoint. And when did we start seeing projectiles getting thrown? As it was getting dusk.
Absolutely, that was when. Yeah, you're exactly right. That is a really important point to make as well. And do you know what? I think that at this stage, while we're describing it, I'm gonna in the background just get up. Let's have a look now. Police coming under attack in Southampton. I'm trying to find some footage. I might go over to AY Audits. He was there at the front of that for a little while. Also, Sploosh got some footage there, and what they demonstrated was it was a who's who of far right shithousery, and because they were there from start to finish, it is a good way of demonstrating exactly what I'm trying to highlight, but also like a chronological in time version of events. So let's share this tab, and oh look, the live chat replay. So we started off. This is at the police station here. You see there's, low numbers of people. This is going to become the focal point, by the way. These steps here, everything else. This is where you're going to see your Tommy Robinsons and Lawrence motherfucking Fox was there giving a speech. Like, what's that creepy guy doing out here? Like, I thought if he came out in sunlight, he turned to stone.
Nick Tenconi was there as well. There was quite a few of
the brown shirt, yeah.
What's that woman called?
Posey Parker.
Yeah, Posey Parker.
So
I tell you one thing that they kept doing that was really peeing me off, and I don't know why they kept doing it, but they kept talking about the religion of Islam and Sikhism as if they were one and the same thing, and they're not. They're completely different. Like, even Tommy Robinson made that comparison, and it's like, this was not a religious incident, was it? It just used a knife associated with wow, my brain's gone to fudge.
With Sikhism, it was the knife that was associated with the religion Sikhism, and what else was it as well? There was a comment before saying there was a name for that knife. Could someone in the chat help us out? There was a name specifically for the knife as well, and which turned out to not be that particular religious article. And I've also heard as well, they train them how to fight when they're kids, and the amount of, like you were saying, like, I've also heard about, like, they're not only trying to tie them to Islam so that they can, push their Islamophobic, use this as a vehicle to push their Islamophobia, but also they're tying it to, like, other, like, ethnic groups as well. Like, there was it, the Kirpan. They were trying to claim it was the Kirpan, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks guys for that. But yeah, so they try and tie it into Muslims, because obviously they hate Muslims. That's what these guys do. But also like Afghanistani people, like they were like, like those Afghani steaks. I'm like, that is that a thing? I don't think that's a thing. That's not real. What are you talking about? Like, these people, they're so keen to inflate them with that. It's like saying Malaysian Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, it's not like they're not. I don't think that's a real thing. Like, I'm sure that people have gone to these areas, maybe settled once. I don't know, but there isn't like a sustained historical. Like, it's not a thing. And like what they're doing is they're trying to conflate it with. They're trying to use this as a vehicle to conflate, and this is what we're about to see as well when we start to see some speakers emerging, which I'll skip to just now. But we start to see them conflating all these different issues with this one murder, and this is the pattern. This is the thing, and I think that this particular point, because we see Nick Tenconi right there, we see like Tommy Robinson, we see what's his name here now, Lawrence Fox. Danny Tomo is there in his sunglasses. It's hard to miss him. Yeah. But like, yeah, all these people. And again, I want to bring it before we hit play and we look at the actual thing. This is where the structure comes from. It's based on this event here mostly that I've got this from the tier system. So Nigel Farage, Rupert, they're directly involved, right? Nigel Farage was directly involved in this event by saying, how do I phrase it now? pure cold rage. You need to respond to this with pure cold rage, as indirect incitement as you can get without it bordering into direct incitement. He was very careful with his words, but it has the same effect regardless. Then the tier 2 people are here. That's your Danny Tomos, your Lawrence Foxes, you know what I mean? All those kind of folks that you're seeing them right there. You're also seeing the tier 3 people, which is your sort of sub-white nationalist or ethno-nationalist sort of like political groups that are on the fringes. You know, your UKIPs, I believe like Homeland people were here as well. You know, your what do you call him? Nick Tenconi, so I'm on about. Those guys there exist in tier 3, and we're also seeing people from the lower tiers, the sort of extremist side of things, the Ryan Fergusons and things. They're all hijacking this event. We're seeing like the auditors, which is who we're seeing this through the lens of right now, all the way at the bottom. They're the bottom feeders that then it cycles back over to the top, and then like this cycle that they have here, this tier system, is like this framework that they're operating in at the moment. It's quite scary, and I'm surprised that like it's after looking at it, I'm surprised it's taken me this long to come to that conclusion, you know, to finally put them in that position. But I guess you've got to watch it for a while.
Yeah, so if it's not about race and it's us that are spinning it to race, how come everyone was shaking the taxi driver's hand because he was Sikh? How come the site singled him out?
Yeah, they'll single him out and be like, it's not about race. You there, if a certain
stupid.
Yeah. It's very stupid, isn't it? And yeah, I honestly think that when it comes to it, like
just remember as well when you're criticising this victim's family asked you not to do what these people are doing. They asked you not to turn it into this. The family of the victim asked you not to do this.
And there they were, right there. No, don't apologise at all. It was a brilliant point, well made, honestly. Yeah, and anytime you need to interject, I sometimes just ramble for the sake of it because that's what I do.
Right. I should not watch chat actually, because some people are quite.
Some people are quite like that, and honestly, yeah, just ignore it for the most part. It's your chance to chill. The chat isn't yours today. The chat belongs to those down there.
Yeah.
It's our time down there. It's our time down here. It's their time up there. We'll do a whole Goonie speech. So I'm just trying to get forward now to right. Okay, can we hear some of the speakers?
I am here to fight to bring an end to woke policing.
So he's here to fight. I love that framing already. Fight to end woke policing. Let's come back a bit here though. I think Tommy had some things that I wanted to listen to.
Seeing that other minorities are being elevated way beyond anyone else so that they get what we'd call greater justice than those that I'm kind of losing because of the noise here, but essentially other people are getting greater rights than we are. Yeah, they're elevated minorities. Yes, basic rights. Yes, more rights now.
So there you go. We've just skipped in, and the first thing we've heard Tommy Robinson say is we're elevating minorities. I'm telling you, it's not us making it about race or ethnicities or about groups. It's not. We're just identifying structures and patterns and, you know, and putting it to you that, a lot of these people are doing it for the grift. And this is the structure that they operate in, the sort of pyramid, if you will, with your political elite at the top, your Nigel Farage's, Rupert Lowe's, and your auditors all the way down at the bottom. But it's not just the pyramid in the way that it's also a cycle. It feeds into itself. That's what we're doing. We're not saying that, like, what they're doing is they should be there talking about Henry Novak, and instead what Tommy Robinson's actually literally talking about, and you heard it with your own ears, I swear to God, he just said that this, he's talking about ethnic minorities and how they're sort of prioritized. There's a hierarchy when it comes to policing. No, the only tier system that Tommy Robinson should be talking about is this one. This is the only tier system that applies to Tommy Robinson at the moment. This two-tier policing it kind of exists. If you're rich, two-tier policing is a thing. For the rest of us, it's not, which is why two-tier policing, just like all of our other issues, is not about race or minority groups or about anything like that. It's about class. You know what I mean? We shouldn't be divided like that. It's a class thing. Like, it's two-tier, yeah, because it's a class thing. It's just two-tier for you as it is for me. But, you know what I mean? It's not about minorities. It's a class thing.
Yeah, it'd be nice if some people named in the Epstein files actually got arrested, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and for the reasons that are listed out in the Epstein files, the crimes that are that are alluded to there, not like sacrificial misconduct in a public office. Fucking Andrew, thank you for that. Oh God, they're horrible. Absolutely, it would be. It'd be nice to see that sort of stuff, and I think that was what would help us. But obviously, we're all too divided, and at the moment, we're not talking about while Nigel Farage is talking about pure cold rage, he's not talking about cold hard crypto, is he? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all serves them, and that's why I came to this tier system, because trying to explain to people how it serves all of these different groups all at the same time through the lens of the riot that was inspired or hijacked, inspired maybe not, but that was using the murder of Henry Novak as a vehicle to push these things. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you have to have that structure in place, and again, I did a lot of my research. When I was looking into it, I was trying to. There is no sort of structured hierarchy or tier system of the far right per se. Hope Not Hate are a great anti-fascist watchdog, and they do have, really good structural breakdowns of it. And then also, my other resources were things like concerned netizen and stochastic auditing theory, and that was a big help for me. I can't recommend that enough to people. But this particular incident now, we saw it in the chat. People are like, oh, well, it's not about, we never said it was about that. Well, Tommy Robinson is literally talking about it now. So we'll hear what he's got to say as well.
As a majority. Yeah, absolutely. Which is not communism. Yes, exactly. And it's not actually the real meaning.
And it's also not communism. Communism isn't that. He's trying to say that, racial two-tier policing is what we have, and that's actually basically communism. This man couldn't be thicker if he tried. So for anyone that's interested, communism is a political and economic ideology. It's a structure that advocates for a classless and stateless society. It literally says we shouldn't have tiers. I just want to say that. I'm not a communist, I'm more socialist than I'd say communist, but that's just my understanding of it, which is growing and learning. I'm not a political student, my things change all the time, but, I could be wrong, but Tommy Robinson doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
No.
And this is supposed to be about Henry Novak, right? And now we're talking about communism. We're talking about racial hierarchies and policing.
Well, he blamed the left for it as well, didn't he? He blamed the left for it. And he blamed the left, he blamed Islam, he blamed everyone but Vikram.
Yeah, not as an individual.
Meaning of the word equity. Equity is about justice and integrity. That's what it should mean, as in from the Bible. So when we're talking about integrity and equity, we're talking about a good thing. But the modern day progressive left have turned it into something where it's about the people that are equal or whom they determine to be equal. Where have you travelled from? So I'm based in Fareham, which is about 20 miles away from here, but I'm currently on holiday in Devon. So I've driven back from Devon to be here today. Because
like a lot of these people as well, now that they've mentioned community and where they're from as well, a lot of these folk are like, we need to protect our communities, so let's leave this community and go to that community. What they mean by community is other white people. I know that wasn't what he was saying there necessarily, but it's something that jumped into my head and I wanted to share it because it's so fucking true. Like when they say that, we need to protect our community, they don't mean like their area, because often they're not in their area. You know what I mean? Like when's Nigel Farage ever in Clacton, or anything like that? What they're actually talking about is they're not talking about their own community in the traditional sense of the word. They mean the white community.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a capital H.
Because I feel this is really important. This is very important. Very important. Okay. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you. Can we get some
Thanks, Dan.
Sorry,
a person was murdered, a criminal did something criminal and was trying to evade being thingy, and then you've got people I happen to know this arsehole. I've just seen him here. What WLM? Oh my God, what another! This has got nothing to do with that situation. If white lives matter, this person wasn't murdered because they were white, right? We know that this person was murdered by a murderer, by a criminal, right? And then this criminal, after the fact, tried to use that to manipulate things. Because surprise, surprise, he's a criminal. That's what they do. That's he's up for breaking these laws. I believe there was even a family effort in that as well. There were people actively trying to cover that up. But that isn't something that is exclusive to to like certain races. He wasn't murdered because of his race. It's just like the students that we saw in the headline rundown that we did earlier when we looked at that, and because the profiles weren't the same as the profiles in this case, and the policing wasn't the same. Like, I admit the police fucked up. Nobody's denying that. They should have checked for injuries more. They should have expedited the ambulance. They could have done a lot more. But this isn't a case of like a race war, like, almost. And that's kind of how it's being played out by a lot of these folks. They're not saying that, but that's the sort of vibe that I'm picking up off a lot of these far righters, that like, oh, well, this is like race war stuff, isn't it? He was attacked because he was white. Well, no, he wasn't. The fact that he was white was used against him in this guy's manipulations afterwards. Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, but that guy could have been anything, and he would have been like, if he wasn't, he would have just said anything. He was trying to avoid a murder charge, and he was actively trying to slow down and, to get this guy to die. It was so bad. It's so bad, his actions, but it is in no way reflective of any groups being under attack. This isn't what this is. Like, it never ceases to amaze me how when you see police failings or you see political failings, and then you go like, oh my God, that political failing is so big and so obvious. And the people on the far right are like, yeah, I see it too. And you're like, right, the government, man. And they're like, God, they're attacking white people. Like, whoa, what? Like, what? No, whoa, no, what are you on about? This structure has always been one that long serves a certain group of people more than others. And like, what are you on about? If anything, it's the opposite. What? Yeah. Like, yeah. It's truly horrific. So we saw this here. We saw, Tommy Robinson goes on to actually make a speech and address the crowd. At the moment, he's just doing a sort of interview. If you will.
You all right? How you doing?
Pardon me, sorry.
I'm good, thank you. Wait, plug it in here, yeah? Get some charge going for us.
Oh. Where the police were summoned, and I quote, "We need you out here. A white guy just attacked my brother."
Absolutely, yeah. So another way of phrasing that is, a criminal tried to manipulate the police so that they wouldn't be arrested for murder.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's another way of phrasing that. But they're going, oh no, I heard the word white from this criminal, right? And so we're going to latch on to that, and it's part of a broader political structure of violence against white people. They're fucking insane. They're insane. But obviously, I don't think that they believe this stuff. They're reaching because, they have to talk about like Islamophobia, and they're talking about anything but the actual events most of the time. But it's because it lines their pockets. It's because that's their grift. Once they, because do you know what? At the very bottom of the tier, I forgot there is a tier 6, and at the very bottom of that tier is us people. We are the target audience, and what they do is they try to find their markets, whether they're niche or massive or whatever, and they try and exploit those markets. Their fear, their rage, whatever it is that keeps them engaged. Their YouTube channels, whether it's like AY audits, things like that. Because you don't see them at other protests for like civil rights and things like that. You only see them usually at like when it's racially motivated or when it's like asylum seekers or It's always when the offender fits a certain profile, which is the pattern that they're fitting now. And what they're doing, like Tommy Robinson, is he's lining his pockets. He's generating more members. He's using this as another vehicle to drive his grift, not just his ideology, but his grift. It's a two-parter. It's obviously an insidious ideology, but it's one that pays. And so there's two elements of it that you've got to focus on. What they're doing is by him answering questions and talking about minority hierarchies and the way that the police treat them, which is a complete and utter myth that doesn't exist. They're not actually talking about the actual incident, because if they did, then they would come to the natural conclusions that this wasn't anything that serves their cause. And they can't have that. They can't have that at all. So they keep doing it.
As you were talking then, I just wondered how much of the hostile environment that their attitudes towards non-white citizens led to a criminal like Bikram being able to weaponize that. Maybe when he said he'd been hit by Henry, maybe when he said he'd had his turban ripped off, that the police automatically assumed, because there is an increase in racially motivated violence and things like that, maybe the police officer was biased in that way. So how much of the far right's attitude has actually led to this disability for certain people to be able to weaponize
Absolutely.
those biased
Weaponize,
attitudes.
yeah. 100%. I think that's a really important point. I think that when it comes to the likes of Tommy Robinson, who has been creating this narrative for a very long time, that creates an environment. Even, I mean, I'll stick with maybe not Tommy. I'll speak specifically Orders, just because I'm a little bit more versed with them than I am with some of the sort of the bigger fish and things and how they operate. I'm still analysing them, but I think I've got the far right vloggers down to a T. So in it, because a lot of the time I don't even think that they're intentionally doing this, but they are thriving on it. It's like a sort of unconscious cycle that they're putting themselves through. So they have this bias, again, prejudice against people of certain, whether it's ethnicities or like legal status or whatever, whether, you know, based on nation of origin, where they are or are not from. Because I know some people go, well, I don't care where they're from, just as long as they're not from here. That's the same thing, you know what I mean? It's the same stuff. And what they do is their model is to grift. They'll talk about these, you know, incredibly controversial, really emotional, loaded, racist talking points that really resonate with a certain audience. And even people like myself, who I'm physically now watching this content, you know what I mean? It's algorithm gold. There's all these other, it's really nuanced, and there's loads of other varying factors, but you can reduce it down to something as simple as sort of like, they find the most contentious, most horrible content that they can, which is far right sort of Nazi adjacent content. They then broadcast that to the internet. People can't help but look. They then rake the money in because people are, you know, they're getting views and everything else like that. Now, the other side of it, the danger side of it, the stochastic element, is that what they're doing is they're creating content that constantly frames an entire group of people to be the enemy, to be an illegal crime of a person that's broken into your country. None of these things are true as well, by the way. You know, the law allows them to be able to, you know, use irregular means, even irregular means such as arriving by shores and everything else. But they paint them out to be the criminal. They paint them out to be the enemy. And in large cases, like with AY, like with DP audits, like with a lot of these other far right vloggers, BBA as well, they paint them out to be specifically like sexual criminals and things like that, which really riles people up, you know. And they're a unique danger, these asylum seekers or illegal immigrants, as they phrased them in that dog whistle. And that then has a knock-on effect on society, which then takes back to that sort of tier system that I was talking about before. It gives because they're pumping it out to millions of views on the internet, that then takes it to collectively, I mean, then that then takes it to, you know, sort of floats up to the upper echelons who get to discuss it, then it comes back down, and then we end up in a cycle where this happens. And we start to see people getting, this is like exploitation central. They're just getting people angry. They're not talking, they're hijacking anything, whether it's rape, child exploitation, anything, and the murder of Henry Novak. And they're like, you need to be angry, get here now, be angry. By the way, you can either join my group, my membership, you can support my cause, you can vote for me, or you can pay for me. It's political capital, it's power and money. That's what you can reduce it all down to. And the auditors are so part and parcel. They're a vital part of this whole structure. That they are an integral piece of it, and the environment that it creates is so dangerous. Sorry, go on.
It is, and they are a vital part, because when you look at like the next tier up, the sort of Tommy Robinsons and people like that, they don't really engage with their audience as much. They get tweets and they can't possibly respond to them all, and they might reshare a few auditors here and there to get their message across, but they can't possibly engage with every single person that responds to a tweet. Whereas the way that auditors do things with the live streams, it feels more interactive. They're engaged in their audience are engaged in an actual community, and that's like that leans into sort of neo-tribalism. When you're in neo-tribalistic communities, that's where like your filter bubbles in your echo chambers come into things. It's where your low empathy language, where you start dehumanizing and demonizing different groups of people, making them othering them. But also the type of language that they use is it strips them of any humanity, makes them seem like a problem that needs to be dealt with, the people that are put in the other groups. But without without like the auditors to like have that higher level of engagement with the audience, a lot of people would disengage after a while from someone like Lawrence Fox or Tommy Robinson, because they're not getting that personal interaction, but they feel like when they're in, like, I don't know, say DP's audience, they feel like he's speaking directly to them, like is literally responding to their questions, even if he's not, even if he's responding to another chatter or just thinking what's on his mind. The audience feel like it's very personal, more personal than it feels when they're trying to engage with Lawrence Fox or Tommy Robinson. So it's like a communication ladder as well, if you know what I mean, between the higher levels and the audience member, which I suppose if we look at it in that sense, then the audience would kind of be that sixth level, because of course, without the audience, they won't have the echo chamber, and filter bubbles just simply won't exist. There wouldn't be a neo-tribalistic community at all if it weren't for those audiences.
No, not at all. And the lack of platform moderation and stuff, it's a really, really in-depth, nuanced conversation. And thank you, by the way, for jumping on and having it with me. This is really important, and it's really, really great topics to cover. I thought I might, if I can, bring this over to when things got a bit to where this police line was here. You see a lot of different faces around here. Obviously, we've got AY, and this is his cameraman who's holding the phone. A lot of these different people that existed in different tiers, but you'll notice that at this level, you won't see some of the upper level tiers. So you won't see Nigel Farage or Rupert Lowe engage in the street activism that we saw there, but they will sort of, indirectly encourage that environment and everything else by, putting out those tweets like he did about cold hard rage and such and everything else. You will see the tier 2 is where it starts to get like sort of street level activist, but you won't see tier 2 getting involved in the dirty business. They just start it off. They give the speeches. They set the framing. It's the Lawrence Foxes, the what's his name, Tommy Robinson. It's those guys that start to talk about this in a sort of two-tier minority policing framing and things like that. They get the angry people, then they give them the thing to be angry at, which is more often than not just a made-up thing. And it has to be that outrageous, to be that unbelievably crazy to get these people worked up. Of course, it's like that. So they're doing that. Then you get the tiers underneath it, like your Tenconis and stuff. You will see him, in and around some of these protests, but again, he won't be getting involved in the sort of dirty stuff. That's tier 2 and tier 1, which is the extremist side of it, the cells, the sort of Aryan fronts, the Ryan Fergusons and things like that, the AY audits, and the whole far right vlogging sphere that they've got there going on, that feeds directly into the talking points that gets discussed at the top that fall down to the bottom, and they can broadcast this to millions of people, and this is what it ends up in. Look at this.
I can't hear you.
The guy at the front here, he was on a panel just yesterday saying this wasn't a riot. Oh, well, if you could call this off.
This was definitely a riot, but I'm going to point out, playing devil's advocate as well, a couple of times I've seen the police raising the shields above the head and slamming down with the edge of the shield. Now, they're not supposed to use that. They're supposed to use the flat front of the shield and occasionally use the shield as like a scoop. If they're going to arrest someone, they can open the shield wall and kind of scoop a person in to arrest them behind the line, but they should not be using the edge of the shields to hit people. I'm sure there was people injured. I'm sure there were definitely police officers injured, but I'm sure there were participants injured as well. I'm sure some people will criticise me for pointing that out. But
no, I think that's a really good, valuable point as well. And my sort of response to that, if you will, is that yes, of course they will be using horrible, dirty tactics and things, but I think that this whole thing from start to finish just should have been it should never have been a case of Tommy Robinson at the steps priming people before these actions happened. I think that they're the main catalyst rather than the police. Yes, the police
Absolutely.
are bad, but I do think that the people on the steps, the things that were said that day against the wishes of the family, that gathering, everything, all about it, all of the stuff that they didn't want, all of that stuff. I think those are where that's the main catalyst. They are just a snowflake is about right. So the quick, my eye flicked to the chat then. How you doing, Jim? It's good to have you. It's good to have everyone in. And if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the share button and stuff. It is important information to put out there because at the moment they're dominating the narrative and they're trying to flip this into almost like a race war thing. And if I'm honest, I do worry about another quote unquote summer of riots. This might be one of the tipping points that we see, that, the flashpoints that brings us to this. I'm not saying that this specific one, I'm just saying that, as more and more of these happen, it becomes more and more normalized. And it's also heightening the political tension, the social tension around it. And when, we're going through cost of living crisis, people are struggling. There's so many political failings, police failings, all of these things. I hear it, I get it. But when you have all of that and a government that's despondent from it and this tier system of the far right feeding on it and thriving on it and hijacking events like this, it always leads to this. And it's I hate to say it, but I'm almost convinced that we're going to have a summer of riots.
We are, and I think it comes down to we're living in a broken system, and we're being subjected to a lot of structural violence because the social safety nets that are supposed to be there to protect us are all decimated. They're all threadbare. They're all they've all got too much bureaucracy involved in them, which obviously drains money from the economy to allow them to function. We've got high numbers of people in work that are subsidised through DWP benefits because the wages don't pay enough. Everyone's looking for someone to blame for the structural violence that's being perpetrated on them by the failing system. And they, sadly, they're lashing out at the most vulnerable groups, the disabled, the asylum seekers, trans communities, women, all the usual targeted groups are the ones that are getting blamed for failing system, and it's successive governments since probably Thatcher.
Absolutely, and this is where now, and with the advent of things like YouTube and then auditing and things, when that came about, I think there's been a proper genuine shift, and that this is a new problem, not a new problem, it's a new way of doing this, and it's quite an effective modern way, and the tactics that the police and everybody else needs to employ need to be updated as well. But what they do is they literally just hijack, while people are feeling all of this pressure from structural violence, while they're feeling all of these strains that, a broken society naturally puts on its population, you get these guys. These are kind of like the sort of like disaster capitalists of the social market, if you will. They go around and they're hijacking like national tragedies. They're seizing like really highly, how do I say it, like sensitive issues. I don't want to keep saying the same like crimes over and over again, but I think that'll cover it. Like the worst crimes you can think of, like it's like harrowing things and murders and stuff, is like they keep doing that, and like these high profile crimes, but it's not out of any genuine like civic concern. This is more just to fuel their channels and their own political agendas. And that is the people that get swept up in that. So if you're somebody that's really angry and, you're feeling the brunt of the structural violence that you're facing in 2026, and you switch on something like YouTube, which is a very 2026 thing to do, you are not short of people telling you why you're suffering, how better things could be if only we got rid of this particular group of criminal people, this element. And then, and like, as much as we can relate it to like propaganda that you see from the Nazi Party, or any time, going up through, as relevant as the pyramid of hate is and all that stuff, we understand that as a society. But what I think we don't understand is the digital element of it. Not everybody's media literate. These guys are. Not everybody, understands how these YouTube streets works. These guys run these YouTube streets. You know what I mean? They're on it.
You can see it right there. So in his title, it has that little police icon. When you've got that in your title, the text-based moderation can't read your title. To answer Chief's question, though, structural violence is when the systems like the DWP, the justice system, all the legal framework, when it's so broken, it starts damaging society. So, like, there's not enough housing, so homelessness goes up. The wages don't pay enough, so people start hurting because they can't afford to buy homes anymore. The economy becomes broken. It's the pain we feel as individuals that leads us to commit crimes of survival, for example, like shoplifting when we're starving, or that type of thing. It comes from the broken systems that cause harm, basically. And then we punch outwards. We usually punch outwards at the wrong people rather than asking government to fix the broken economy and the decimated healthcare system and the struggling education systems. What we do instead is we punch out at minority groups and blame them. Or some of us do. And if the right and left came together, the right and left actually came together and demanded government start actually fixing the broken structures and investing in people again and workers again, half these systems would be fixed, and half of the pain that we feel, we wouldn't feel anymore.
100%. No, I didn't even use that. I was trying to, but no, 100%. This is the thing, isn't it? This is if all of these people here right now, despite who they are, because I mean, obviously, people like AY Audit's threatened to burn down a school, but even him, you know what I mean? Even people like that, if everybody said, do you know what? We're not going to go to cause a riot at a certain specific police station, try and hijack this thing if they didn't insert their ideology into it. And if this was a group of people who said, if they were doing what genuine proper auditors were doing and holding police account, and they were like, right, here's what we're going to do. We're all going to protest together. Let's make this the biggest protest ever. Not not one that can be countered. Not a left protest that's countered by the right, or a right protest that's countered by the left. Let's use all of those numbers, those massive numbers that we saw in not the last UTK one, that was small, but the one before that, that UTK event last year. Let's use all those numbers, and together with all of the pro-Palestine and Nakba marchers, we had together, you've got nearly what's that you've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, and we can go and address the structural violence. We can, because again, what happened to Henry Novak could be, in my opinion, I read it as a structural violence thing, as the result of a broken system that isn't fit anymore. And so, the policing system, for example, because it's so very underfunded, because the structure and the politics and everything else involved with it, it's so broken. The funding's gone. It's they're underfunded, overworked. There's a whole culture issue with the policing and everything else. There's so many things that can and would need to change, that we could change if we came together. But they don't want to do that. Instead, they want to further their own YouTube channels and things. And during this riot, I wonder if I can skip to it actually, because it's during this riot that AY actually gets his phone and starts to show you what his YouTube numbers are, and he's kind of boasting and encouraging people to keep subscribing. Do you know what I mean? And this whole thing isn't about Henry, it's about their numbers. The people throwing bricks, this isn't about Henry. This is about the structural violence that they're facing, and the fact that they're going through cost of living crisis. And yeah, police are shit, but I don't know. I wonder how we unite left and right like that, and how we get an end to this, and then we get a start to, okay, let's address the structural violence. Let's address the actual core issues and the political failings, the massive gaps that are in these flimsy safety nets that society used to offer. I mean, like the NHS, for example, it's basically like a 1940s model that's been constantly being patched up and revived with blood magic, I guess, or whatever it is they do. Like, it's not. We need to change. We need a full
But if we
top-down
had
change, and not just one area, but all. Sorry.
if the NHS were functioning, people with addictions would be getting the treatment that they needed, because it is a health first issue, especially when we're talking about alcoholism. I'm trying not to mention names, but there's been a name mentioned in chat, and I really don't like it. So that individual would be treated through the NHS, and he'd be treated with compassion, not condemnation. He is a prime example of the structural violence. The system is broken. The system is literally broken. He cannot get the help that he needs for recovery. So he's going to continue to be a drain on society. But if he was being supported by multiple different safety nets, mental health, addiction, health, financial, if he was being supported by all these systems and he was being uplifted instead of suppressed, he would be more of a functioning member of society in no time. But as it stands, he's stagnating because there's no health safety net, there's no mental health safety net, there's no financial safety net. He can't lift himself out of poverty. He can't enjoy any recreation because it's all too expensive. So his idea of recreation then is continuing to engage in addictive activities, which are much cheaper than other forms of recreation. So it's just a vicious cycle that continuously feeds itself, and that's what structural violence is. And I'd prefer it if
100%.
people didn't mention individuals in chat like that, especially vulnerable ones. And that person hates me, by the way, hates me. And I'll defend him.
That's the thing, isn't it? And I think that yeah. So also as well, I'll try and be a bit more thingy in chat. I've not really been having a look. I was kind of I just got really into the conversation and stuff. I saw like the odd comment here and there, but let me have a gander. But I think that when it comes to, again, like, you know, people like, you know, like that, but obviously, you know, naming names and things like that isn't really necessary at all. So if we can stop, you know, not be doing that in chat, that'd be great. But I think that when it comes to people in society that are being perceived as like the drains or whatever, like, you know, people that are, for example, always in the courtrooms, and, you know what I mean, or like, you know, they're not able to work and contribute that way, they're not able to you know, like to exist in society as a healthy functioning person would do, and, you know, which includes being able to help those around you. He's not going to get any of those kind of help. These problems are going to continue to happen because we have these systemic issues. We have you know, systematic violence. We really do. It's one of those big massive problems, and this is why I always end up like instead of going there and talking about like even if they had real concerns about immigration, great, let's join arms together and go and ask for a change in how we work up with our government and stuff, which can change how we educate people. Let's do a great skills drive in certain areas. But instead, they take those grievances and stand outside hotels, and then they moan that when they get called racist, because the common theme throughout all of this is that they're not addressing structural violence. They're only addressing specific hyper minority or hyper minutiae sort of like sections and like percentages of specific systemic violent issues, like, you know, like the way that the system treats women when they're reporting sexual violence and things like that. You know, that's another big, huge failing. They hyper focus not on the problem itself, but on the offenders. And then they look for a minority of them, and then they'll turn up at hotels with grievances there. That's how they end up at hotels, because instead of looking at the issue and the systemic violence, they hyper-focus with their far-right lens onto people that fit a certain profile. And then they go, I'm not racist. Bro, yeah. Like, not only are you racist, and I mean this in the least cliche way possible, but you are literally what's wrong with society, in the sense that we could have fixed all of this by now if it wasn't for you guys being fucking, you know what I mean? Like, with all these mad random new parties that are coming up and, you know, on the right and stuff, without the division, the hatred, and if we'd have just got together and addressed the structural issues, all of your problems would be solved by now. You'd have much lower rates of immigration than we already have, which, by the way, are reducing at a dramatic rate. So while they're bitching about it, it's less than it was before, and people are still moaning. But like, we could have addressed all of that in the most healthy way possible by creating systemic change that sees a great big skills drive in communities that have been depleted, in, you know, former minor communities and towns that they had no economy after Thatcher, in areas that were decimated by the advent of cheap flights and things like that, you know, like coastal towns and things that, you know, we could do so much more if we just came together. But they're insistent on going, no, it's fine. I know what the real problem is. It's offenders with brown faces, but I'm not racist. It's like, fucking come on, man. Like, really, get a grip.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that stochastic enragement ends up being a riot.
Yeah. The way to fix most of this is just to raise the minimum wage to an actual genuine living wage. That takes about 34 to 40% of people off of welfare overnight doing that. Of course, that's how many, about what percentage of people on universal credit are in work. So that relieves so much pressure off of that system straight away. Then you alleviate some of the bureaucracy, go back to a system that allows doctors to sign people off, but still doing maybe a review process that's more GP led or consultant led. For like disability benefits, rather than forcing people through these telephone assessments that are incredibly detrimental to people's physical and mental health. Education, we need to increase media literacy, don't we, so that people understand how algorithms work, so they're not getting driven towards this type of content, and so they can understand how programming works, because of course the majority of the programming processes actually come from advertising. We know how these processes work because advertisers use them on us. If you look up the 4D programming process, apart from one stage being slightly different, all the stages are exactly the same. In the advertising programming process, and the any of these far right or misogynistic manosphere type communities. So education with media literacy and understanding radicalisation.
That's brilliant, and that is a really good. That is a fantastic way to be able to counter this from being a problem again. And I think that on top of that, I think there does need to be we need a top down, like, you know, systemic change. Not just in the way that we educate people, but just in everything, so that these people that are in society can start to be comfortable within their own society again, so that people like DP can get a job and it pays just as much as, because the reason why he doesn't have a job or didn't, you know, wasn't working much or anything until he had YouTube and that on, you know, the reason he's there is because obviously it generates funds. The reason why AY there is generated, but these people can go back to actually productive roles in society, you know what I mean, and actually, you know, working for the better of everyone. You know, little jobs can pay more and everything like that. We'd see a lot less violence on the street if we had a lot less structural violence, is my point, I think. And on top of that, to avoid it, the education side of things, oh my god, their EQ and IQ really shines through, like especially in moments like this with the riot. Like, that can't be a thing anymore. We can't see is it the reverse Flynn effect, which was where we're seeing like IQ dropping for, you know, for relatively the first time in a long time. We're in that era now where across you know, certain parts of the world, it's just like, especially here, it's starting to take a dive a little bit. And there's loads of reasons for it, and again, that comes back to structural violence. But wow, we need to educate people. Like, it's just so sad, isn't it?
Yeah, some myths that I've heard people saying with utter confidence in these communities, like talking about historical stuff, or I'm in a privileged position as a viewer, because I can sit there watching on one screen and Googling on the other stream. So even when it's a subject that I'm not an expert in, I can often Google and fact check, and I'm astounded at how many times people are saying things with confidence that are just simply not true. And I think that's how some of this propaganda is able to seep into their minds, because they don't understand the history, they don't understand the geography, they don't understand some of the like, one of the things that I heard is, I'm not involved in geopolitics. This is one of the things that we keep hearing them say. They say that they're concerned about migration, but they're not involved in geopolitics. Well, migration is geopolitics. That's what it is. It's not just about international wars and foreign aid and all these other things. Geopolitics is literally talking about issues around migration. But you can't have these discussions with these people because they're so close-minded. They think it's just one issue when it's multiple things. It goes back to Theresa May's hostile environment when she was in the Home Office. If you remember, Amber Rudd fell on a sword, and then white papers and green papers introduced by Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, I believe, later on, that created this system where asylum seekers are now housed in hotels, and hoteliers are paid just disgusting amounts of money to house them there. They've even legislated about the meals that they give them, and how if they get meals as part of their accommodation, they don't get the full fund anymore. I think it's £8 a week they get if they get meals, and there's no guidance on what the quality of those meals needs to be. So when they're all talking about, oh, they get these fantastic meals, and they show these images of these fantastic meals that they get when they're invading the hotels, and they do look like nice meals. They don't get no say in that. They just get the meals served to them. These are not prisoners. These are vulnerable people fleeing war, fleeing persecution.
And the influences, and you can see, like, what brings, everyone to, like you were saying about fleeing war, fleeing persecution, and that's how these people have arrived, into that hotel system. And the other people, the orders and things that are in there trying to, what they're doing is they know that some people, not them, because they're doing all right, but they know that some people are really struggling between, like, heat and eat, for example. And so they go in and they try and exploit more structural violence that's being used against them to weaponize the structural violence against asylum seekers too. And the reality is that at both levels, we are the same people, and we're all being exploited, and we're all that vulnerable bottom group of people. There is a two-tier society, and it's nothing to do with race. It's about class. It's about capitalism. It's about how the structure isn't serving us anymore, to the point where it is dangerous and harming people. Like at the moment, you'd like trying to a lot of the issues that we so like I was reading some reports that were indicating that because when it comes to things like crime and that in the area, people say that, oh, well, once these guys are in the area, there's more crime in the area and stuff. And when you look at, the facts that, no, introducing the asylum seekers into an area doesn't actually increase the crimes. And also it can be difficult to say that on the one hand, because there isn't any official data like that. They don't rank crimes by, like, legal status and things like that. So the data is a bit difficult to get to, but there are independent, this is what I was looking at last night. There are independent bodies such as, like, Oxford University, for example, that have done studies and say that there is no difference in crime levels and things when you introduce asylum seekers, and it's not true. So not only is there no evidence for it, but there is independent bodies that suggest that it's the exact opposite. That isn't true, but they will try and weaponize that as it's part of generating fear and keeping people divided. But we're all the same people that are suffering. And the main point that I wanted to make to answer to what you were saying as well is that to tie it back to that is about that we had policies that I can't remember when it was, but they prevented asylum seekers from being able to work. And so in a couple of areas there was like a small fluctuation in property crime. I think, but that's because, again, structural violence. Once we start removing the threads that keep, that keep the safety net intact, you start to see people falling through it and then bad things happen. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that like that there is a direct example of how on both sides of the aisle, the structural violence affects all of us. And like, whether we're talking the crime rate, if you want to reduce crime rates, if you want to reduce anything, any of your problems right now that you have with society and the way that it's geared up and functions, you can absolutely bet that, all of us have those same issues and we can all come together and fix it. It's a problem that affects all of us, and it affects asylum seekers. They're not getting enough money to live on in a lot of cases. They're barely, some people are like, oh, they're getting food. Like, I could barely choose between heat and eat. And it's like, yeah, but they're also in like, they're getting less than, I think that when I was in working for the charity and I was in India, we were taught that absolute poverty is something like under sort of $2 a day, $2.50 a day or something like that. I can't remember if that's changed since then. It was 10 years ago. That might have changed, but that's absolute poverty. We're keeping these people in absolute poverty in a lot of cases. And they are held in absolute poverty and people are moaning that they're being fed. And I'm like, but how about we say that we all don't accept this standard of living and that we'd all like a bigger slice of the pie? Why don't we all come together and actually get systemic change? God, I can't.
A rising tide lifts all ships. So, like, if you start lifting people up from the most vulnerable in society, you start lifting them up, it raises everyone up above. You don't raise people up by grabbing people from the top and pulling them up. You push people up from the bottom and it lifts everyone up.
Absolutely. This is the thing. Like, people think that, like, by coming together, they may lose what privilege or power that they have, certain people in certain areas. And that simply isn't the case. We are stronger together. And I'm not saying that it's a conspiracy by corporations or donors of, political figures and political figures themselves. I'm not saying that they are intentionally keeping us divided. I mean, I kind of am. But what I am saying is if you don't buy into that, what we know categorically is that with the system we have, it really benefits them.
Yeah,
it works to their favor. That's objectively true. Whether they intended it to be that way or not, whether they work to maintain it and keep it that way, that's another conversation altogether. It is that way. It does work for them. Oh, it's really mad, isn't it? And this is ultimately when it comes to the story of Henry Novak, it's the saddest, most tragic incident, and it's heartbreaking to see that the systemic failures really let him down at a time where he needed them most, and he is an 18-year-old kid. And if this system is letting him down, then who else is it letting down? Look out broadly, look across the country and look how we're all suffering. Like Henry, that was so bad, and it is. I get it. It was a murder. It's uniquely bad. It's terrible and it's awful. But this should be a time where if people are going to be discussing the case of Henry Novak in any sort of political context, it should be about political failings, not about insidious ideology that centers around minority fucking hierarchies and fucking other far right myths, insert great white replacement fucking things. And like it's sad to see that that's where we're at. It's a really sad state of affairs. There is hope. We can come together, but I doubt it.
Well, if you look at the older papers like the Beveridge Report and things like that, they talked about I think it was called the 5 pillars or something like that, and it was like poverty, ill health, all these different things, crime, all linked back in together. And they found that if they eradicated poverty, if they lifted everybody out of the poverty, everything else, like kind of violent crime, went down. I forgot how they phrased it, but they were basically talking about like dirt and squalor, conditions like improve for everyone if you lift people out of poverty. Ill health improves if you lift people out of poverty because it fixes the squalor, which is where a lot of ill health comes from. A lot of the systems that we had today, the NHS, the welfare system, it were born kind of from the Beveridge Report. And I think that is when we look at it, the main thing we have to do is we need to fix poverty. crimes like this, it's not just the racially motivated people that are latching onto stories like this and poisoning society with right-wing ideology. It's poverty. If they eradicated poverty, people would be more compassionate. There would be more understanding. I don't think that's
Absolutely
making much sense, but yeah.
No, it does. I honestly, this is the thing. So there is also that is an evidence take. So when you look at historically, when we go through periods of low standard of living, cost of living crises. But when we go through a period of cost of living crisis and we go through really poor economic times, you see a steep incline in things like hate crimes and things like that are directly tied in together, because even if you don't have like a particularly high EQ, if your needs are met, then you're a relatively sort of happy individual. Like somebody was saying about this ties into a comment from Nutato's about hierarchy of needs, and I was like, oh, I know the hierarchy of needs kind of. I helped a family member when they were doing some studying and stuff, and there's the 5 tiers of hierarchy, isn't there? The psychological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem needs, and self-actualization. And so it's also, do you know what? It's also like a pyramid. Let's get I'll show this. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's bring this up because I think it really does tie into what you're saying, and it was a good comment as well. I think it's a good way of explaining that if we can just increase, through several different key vectors, you know what I mean? Like if you can just increase the standards of how people are living, reduce the stresses on them. That's the key thing. If you can reduce their stresses, like for example, like when you apply this to like areas like crime, who's going to be going out and risking it all for stealing like some shampoos or some razors, Gillette razors from Boots, when they can, you know what I mean? They have a basic income and things like that. If that need is met, if they had enough to be able to live a life that was, and all these other things like, like they were taken care of, they had like, love and belonging and all that other stuff, self-actualization, if they could get from the bottom to the, through all of this, the hierarchy, like it's fantastic. So, are you familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Lindsay?
Yeah, I have. I'm not like well versed on it, but I have come across it before. Yeah.
So, proposed by a humanistic psychologist, Abraham Maslow, in 1943, he proposed a theory in a paper for Psychological Review entitled "A Human Theory of Human Motivation." Further, he subsequently extended the concept by including the observation of human behavior. The theory I'm really going to struggle with this word now. Parallelly. Is that it? It doesn't sound like a real word.
It doesn't sound like
parallelly justifies. Oh, no, that sounds silly. The theory parallelly justifies many other theories of psychological development of humans and focuses on the stages that assist growth in humans. In this theory, Maslow relies on psychological terms like self-transcendence, self-actualization, esteem, belongingness, safety, and psychological needs. This theory also includes the biological and humanistic approaches to human personality. There are biological factors that influence human personality. The connection between Maslow's theory and biological factors would explain the aspect of humanistic theory that helps explain the biological aspects of personality. So let's have a quick look at what these stages are and what people need. So stage 1, this is your biological and your physiological needs: your air, your water, your food, your warmth, your shelter, your sleep, and sex. And in this, I mean, I don't know necessarily if I would rank that in there either, to be fair, but I guess, it's about your sort of humanistic needs and things. So the context that I learned it was in a sort of like learning how to deal with people at work and things like that. I was helping someone that was doing, doing some college work and things, and it was a really, really interesting subject. And basically, like, if you're like managing people or anything like that, and if you can sort of, the key things to look for in your staff, like, are their basic needs met? And it's what I'm trying to say is that when you put this in a sort of like in the work setting, it makes for happy, decent people, but you can also apply that to a societal setting as well. Like, it works in a lot of different areas. It's quite malleable, this hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that if you meet the basic needs in stage 1, then you can focus on the needs, the more serious needs in stage 2, and then you can move on to stage 3 and so on and so forth.
Exactly, which is why it's a pyramid. You know what I mean? It's got its base level, stage 1, and this one. This is also like, these are also almost tips for like living a happy, productive life in general. Like, if you can, step 1 to being able to do that is by having air, water, food, warmth, shelter, sleep, and not all of those things are in our control, which sucks. And they're not even in like the control of like the people through vote. It's, do you know what I mean? In the capitalist society that we have, we fail at stage 1. Like, it's so bad that we don't account for people, and there are people going without stage 1, but that happens. And then but that's fundamental, and that's the cornerstone with which you will get stage 2, your safety needs. So not only do you need air, water, food, warmth, shelter, sleep, and everything else, you need freedom from fear, protection, natural elements, law and order, security and stability. Like, that protection from natural elements and stuff as well sounds basic, but there's people that live in like, you know what I mean, live in rain conditions, and like, it's not just having like some shelter, it's about having genuine, like having a comfortable home where you're free from the freedom of, where you're free from fear, and you have that freedom to be secure. You know what I mean? Stability here, security and the stability, law and order. You know what I mean? Having those things is really important.
Yeah. I think going back to the beverage report was looking at food, water and shelter to meet basic needs, but it was also leaning into the safety tier, because it was looking at like reducing crime and ways how to do that. So it kind of, it's a mix of sort of tier 1 and tier 2 of this Pavlovian pyramid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I also as well. But like, when it comes to we'll skip to sort of like the actualization, because obviously this the esteem needs, the self-actualization. It's all incredibly important. But ultimately, what you achieve, is if you can master these sort of things within people. If you can have a society that addresses this, you can end up with people that are self-fulfilled, people that are seeking personal growth, rather than pointing at people to blame because they're struggling to eat. You know what I mean? Like, rather than like, pointing the people to blame because, they've got all these, interpersonal issues that could be solved without the weight of systemic violence on them. They could have that personal growth and realize their personal potential. And I can guarantee you right now that their personal potential does not in any way, shape or form look like the riot that we saw. It doesn't look, it's not, you won't find your personal potential outside of a hotel either. You know what I mean? You need to, it's really sad because society is failing. If you look at like like we were saying, comparing it to that, society is failing to do so. And what we need to do is change society. But instead, what some people want to do is they've been tricked with propaganda because, people want to profit. We went through that tier system that I showed before, and who sits at the top making the most, who it benefits the most, and how it filters down, and, that ecosystem works and feeds itself. It's a scary system. I don't see this problem going away anytime soon. However, I do think that it's important to keep having conversations like this, and to keep reminding people that this is to be class conscious. This is that, the people that there aren't your enemy. The police even aren't your enemy. It's the system that props them up. It's the system that gives them the power. It's the system that allows, police to not be able to do. And obviously there will be human error as well. We can't avoid that in a lot of cases, but we should have a system in place where the police approach a person who's been stabbed and he doesn't die in cuffs. And I think that's pretty much where I wanted to end on that. Have you got any more final thoughts or anything?
I was just going to say the police are a part of the system, aren't there? And they've been massively underfunded over the years. So it's bound to be another system that's broken and is now injuring and harming the society that it purports to protect, to serve and protect. They don't serve us anymore. They try to keep us in line, don't they? It's just another broken system. I think people need to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror at some of their behaviours over the recent weeks. Some of these people are parents, and they need to imagine that themselves in a similar situation with people throwing wheelie bins around in these circumstances, throwing bricks. You know, the Henry Novak's family don't deserve this. They deserve to be respected, and that meant listening to them, and they asked for this not to happen, and it's happened. So I think we all need to just take a look at ourselves in the mirror and see if there's something that we could have done differently to have prevented this from happening, maybe.
Absolutely, and I think that is a really, really decent, wholesome, and beautiful note to end it on. Thank you so much, MZ. Your contributions have been more than invaluable. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. Gonna wrap up the stream now. I am gonna advertise the Discord again, as I do. I'm probably gonna nip into there for just a little bit. I believe that there's already some decent folk in a voice chat, so I might go in a little bonus sort of after party, if you will. And everyone, by the way, round of applause in the chat for MZ. What an amazing contribution that was. Thank you so much. It really helped me understand and unpick some of the ideas that I was struggling to I was up all night writing things down and trying to go, well, what is, and you know what I mean? And it was, and then I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys. Toodle pips.